Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from drnerdlove.com. This week, I want to give you all some immediate, actionable advice that will help you blow past an incredibly common sticking point and accelerate your dating success. And honestly, what I want you to do is very simple. I want you to stop assuming that you're a mind reader. Okay, let me back this up here for a second. One of the biggest stumbling blocks I see guys run into time and time again is that they assume they know everything that they need to know, whether it's deciding that somebody couldn't possibly be interested in them, to assuming that they already know exactly how their partner feels and this is why they can't do the thing that they need to do in order to fix their relationship. Seriously, if you've ever been the person who is yelling at the TV about how a single, simple conversation could solve all of the characters' relationship problems, you may want to look at your own expectations. The problem here is that more often than not, we tend to respond to our ideas of what's actually going on rather than the reality on the ground. Guys in general have a tendency to take it for granted that we all have crystal clear insight into what's actually going on and that we know everything that we need to about women and what women want. Or about society, or evolution and psychology, or you get the idea. The problem is that most of the time, it's complete horse, especially when it comes to women and dating. Now, you can call this an adherence to stereotypes, you can call it confirmation bias, the fallacy of composition, whatever. Guys have a tendency to create an image in their head about what's actually going on rather than dealing with the reality on the ground. The classic example of this comes from the incel community with their perpendicular to reality view of the world of Chads and Stacys. But you see this elsewhere too, such as in the Red Pill and PUA communities, in EvoPsych, and in a lot of other areas. But it also comes up when we assume that somebody couldn't possibly be interested in us because we don't have the right body type or the right lifestyle, or that we just aren't the right kind of person. But much of the issue comes from the fact that folks want to hold on to the idea that we have perfect insight into the interest and motivations and mindsets of other people. In fact, far clearer ideas about what motivates them than they would have about us. The problem is that this insight is, more often than not, coming from our pre-existing beliefs and prejudices, not reality. We want to believe it, and so those beliefs color everything we see. We acknowledge only the information that confirms those beliefs, and then we disregard everything else. This is a really common cognitive bias, and it is incredibly insidious because we want to believe that we have that crystal clear insight into others, that we understand them like nobody else does, because it validates our view of the world. It's far easier to assume that we know the truth, as though it had been handed down to us carved onto stone tablets, than to possibly face the fact that we might be wrong. Especially when being wrong means that the reason why, say, we're still single isn't because the world is unfair, but because it's the result of the choices we've made. And to make matters worse, not only are these beliefs not rooted in facts, they're often rooted in our interpretation of events that may have happened years ago. Not even what actually happened, but how we remember it happening, which is not the same thing. Now, one of the most common examples of this is the idea that women only love bad boys and not nice guys. Now, I'm not going to rehash a lot of the basis of this because I've already covered these in previous episodes. Go ahead, check them out. I've linked to them in the show notes. Instead, I want to give an example of this fallacy in action by examining how it plays out in pop culture, both in the narrative but also in our interpretation of the events. We are going to look at an almost prototypical conflict between the nerdy nice guy and the bad boy jock conflict, where the nice guy loses out to the jock despite being so much better than him and, incidentally, a better match for the woman in question. And there is no better example of this than in Joss Whedon's Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. Incidentally, thanks to YouTuber Sarah Z, who inspired this episode. She's got a great video on the politics of Dr. Horrible. You all should go check it out. I've also linked to that in the show notes. So, The character of Dr. Horrible is set up to be a classic example of what TV tropes calls a dogged nice guy. And we as the audience are primed to be sympathetic to Dr. Horrible, or Billy, because, well, mostly because he's the protagonist, but also because a lot of us can relate to him. He's shy, a little socially awkward, but he's incredibly smart, accomplished, and he has this rich secret inner life that most people never see. Raise your hand if that sounds familiar to you. Okay, seriously, not for real. I can't see you. This is not a... Anyway. And of course, he is hopelessly in love with Penny, played by Felicia Day, who is someone he's never actually talked to. He's only ever seen her at the laundromat. But despite the fact that he has never had a single conversation with her, he has built up this idea of who she is in his head. She is quite literally his dream girl because he's fallen for a dream of who she is. He doesn't know who she is in real life when the story starts. Now, on the other hand, we have Captain Hammer, the prototypical handsome, athletic jock jerk, who is incredibly popular despite the fact that he is a complete self-centered asshole who uses women for sex and then tosses them aside. Again, we are being primed to hate him because so many of us have encountered this exact guy in high school or college. Even if you've never watched the show, you probably already know what happens. Penny falls for Captain Hammer despite the fact that he's clearly awful for her, and theoretically, Billy's the much better partner. But the question that we want to examine is, why does she fall for Captain Hammer instead of Billy? And let's preclude the obvious knee-jerk responses I hear a lot of you getting ready to type into the comments. It's not because girls like assholes, it's not because Billy's too beta, and it's not because a woman can't appreciate a nice guy when she meets one. That is all completely wrong. This is that cognitive bias in effect. We believe that we understand her motivations perfectly, and we know exactly why Penny feels the way that she does, because to us, it's the only reasonable explanation for why she's dating someone who's an obvious asshole. Except there's one problem with this. We're letting our biases, our identification with the protagonist, color our interpretation of what's going on. To understand just why Penny picks Captain Hammer over Dr. Horrible, then you have to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. Specifically, Penny's. As the audience, we have a wider view about what's going on. We are seeing more of the story. But because we have that near omniscient perspective, we automatically assume that that makes our view correct. That if someone doesn't see the things the way that we do and come to the same conclusions, then clearly there's something wrong with them, such as the fact that Penny doesn't see through Hammer's bullshit or how great Billy is. Because we see Hammer acting like a jerk-ass, we assume that everybody else should have the same opinion and that there are no other sides to be had here. Similarly, we see how much Billy cares about her, and again, we assume that this must be the obviously correct choice to anybody with eyes. But from Penny's perspective, it's night and day different. Not because she's too stupid or too innocent or too sweet to see it, and trust me, we'll get to that in a second, but because of how everybody's acting from her perspective. Consider that up until the moment that Dr. Horrible is trying to pull off a jewel heist, he and Penny have literally never talked. From her perspective, he's just the guy that she occasionally sees at the laundromat. The first time they ever speak, he actively mocks her petition to help the homeless, a cause that she feels incredibly passionate about.
But if we get enough signatures...
Signatures?
This is his first chance to make a good impression on her, and he sets the tone for their future relationship by basically calling her hopelessly naive and all over her dream, all but calls her out for believing in SJW bullshit.
But they're a symptom. You're treating a symptom, and the disease rages on, consumes the human race. The fish rots from the head, as they say, so my thinking is, why not cut off the head?
Meanwhile, Captain Hammer makes a far stronger and more positive first impression. First by saving her life, and then by taking an active role in the interaction with her. He's checking in on her, he's flirting with her, he's showing positive interest. He gets a date with her because he's actually put in the work, not just to get her interested, but to show that he is into her as well. So, looking at it from her angle, Penny has the good-looking guy who's already made a splashing interest, set the tone of their interaction in a positive light, and has actively let her know that he likes her. And on the other hand, there's the cute guy she knows by sight who just took a big steaming dump all over her interests.
Signatures.
Seemed like he didn't actually want to talk to her and then disappeared. She literally has no reason to believe that Billy even likes her. And over the course of their relationship, Billy never actually demonstrates interest or makes a move. He's doing the platonic best friend backdoor gambit, trying to build up rapport and attraction by acting like a friend and looking for that perfect moment when she'll be most receptive to his interest. Now, we as the audience know that this is because he's shy, he's awkward, he's afraid of being rejected because he's built this relationship with her up into this huge thing in his mind, but he's still not doing the critical work that needs to happen if he wants a date. He's not building any chemistry, he's not even showing that he thinks of her as anything other than as a laundry buddy. From her side of things, she thinks he's only interested in her as a friend because that's exactly what he's acting like. He's never demonstrated any romantic or sexual interest in her. Meanwhile, we know that Captain Hammer is using her. We know that he's recognized Dr. Horrible in his civilian guise, and we know that Hammer is planning on using Penny both sexually and also to literally cuckold Dr. Horrible. But from Penny's perspective, none of this is showing up. From her side of things, he is caring, he's considerate, he's attentive, he's engaging her emotionally and intellectually, and he shows that not only does he care for and support her passions, he actually uses his celebrity to help her achieve one of her biggest goals in life. So her interest in Captain Hammer has nothing to do with his being alpha anything. It's got everything to do with the fact that as far as she's concerned, he's being a great supportive boyfriend. I mean, yeah, the fact that he looks like Nathan Fillion doesn't hurt either, but it's primarily the fact that he has actually put himself forward as the perfect guy. Now, you remember that bit about how could she be so blind to not see that he's an asshole? Well, that actually comes into play. Like I've said before on this topic, these so-called bad boys are only successful for so long because, frankly, women aren't dumb. Assholes can only hide their assholery for so long before it starts becoming glaringly obvious. By Act 3, during a moment that should be the climax of her goal and long-held dream to help others, Penny is starting to wise up to the fact that Hammer is a self-absorbed jackass who is the center of his own universe and can't even let her have a moment without making it all about him. She's a prop at best, a sex toy at worst, and she's starting to realize that, you know, Billy might be a better match for her. And if Billy had been an actual friend, then this might be where he would have the chance to change their relationship and escape the friend zone. Standard disclaimer, there is no such thing as the friend zone. There are only people who don't want to date you or to sleep with you. But instead, he goes full Elliot Rodger and decides to murder the Chad that he thinks is cheating him out of getting the sex that he rightly deserves. And to be perfectly blunt, even if Dr. Horrible hadn't gone on the revenge murder spree, things would never have worked out between Penny and Billy because Billy's not actually the nice guy he thinks he is. He has been manipulating and lying to Penny this whole time, and his face heel turn comes about because ultimately it didn't work. His interest in her isn't nearly as real or as deep as he thinks because it never really goes beyond his attraction to her. He's fronting as being a friend because he thinks it's his best opportunity to get into her pants. He's never concerned about Penny as a person or thinks even about why she should be interested in him. I mean, did he really think that someone who was into helping the homeless is going to want to date a supervillain? His lifelong dream is quite literally in opposition to everything that she cares about. Even his jealousy over Hammer's relationship with Penny has nothing to do with her and everything to do with him. He's not worried that she's going to be hurt and heartbroken by Hammer's bullshit when she finds out. He's angry because he believes that he deserves her more than Hammer does. In the end, he falls to the dark side because to him, somebody is touching his stuff. He decides to turn to violence and murder, something that he was actively opposed to earlier, because his ego is hurt and so he's lashing out. But we're primed to see this like Dr. Horrible does, that the jerk wins because he's the jerk and needs to be taken down a peg, that he has a right to be this angry, and we respond to that instead of the reality that at the end of the day, he is murderously angry because the girl he likes decided to date the guy who actually made the effort to get to know her and win her over, instead of the guy who was just acting like a platonic friend. All too often, we fall for that exact same fallacy in our personal lives. We craft this image in our heads that we think is what's actually going on, and we respond to that instead of taking a moment to try to look at it from another perspective, or more importantly, accept that maybe we're wrong and we don't know what's actually happening. We don't accept that maybe we don't know exactly what somebody else thinks or how they feel, and that the only person who does know that is them. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the fact that something hurts doesn't make it true. Masochistic epistemology is just another way that you end up justifying this fallacy. If you want to find the dating success that you have been longing for, you need to stop making assumptions based on your fears and your self-limiting beliefs. You need to let go of the idea that you have this perfect insight into others and recognize that, hey, you're wrong a lot of the time, and you very well may be wrong about this. You need to stop assuming that you know, say, how you're already rejected because you don't have the right body, the right lifestyle, the right job, or what have you. You need to stop reacting to the imaginary version of women that you've picked up from bad TV and dodgy subreddits who only want this, that, or the other bull thing. And you need to stop letting that happened to you in the past, whether it was awful people in high school or an uncomfortable rejection or a bad breakup, define what you think women are like or what they want. You need to let go of what you assume you know about other people. And you especially need to stop treating women as though they're either too stupid to know themselves or that they're actively lying to you because reasons, and start acting like maybe they might know more about themselves, their interests and motivations than you do. You need to approach women as individuals and try to get to know them and connect with them, not the imaginary version that you've built up in your head. Start letting go of the fantasy version in your head. Start dealing with the reality on the ground, and you will stop getting in your own way, and you will start having the success that you've always wanted. Hey, thanks for checking out my latest video. So, you've heard from me, now I want to hear from you. If you had a misconnection with someone who you thought couldn't possibly be into you, I want you to share your story in the comments below, especially if you manage to turn it around. I mean, come on, let's get some happy stories in here. Meanwhile, if you have a short dating question that you'd like to have featured in a future episode, then you can call it in to 512-522-6513 and leave a voicemail, or you can record it on your end and send it to doc@DrNerdLove and put "for YouTube" in the subject header. And since we're talking about knowing how to meet women, how to find the relationships you want, if you want to grind up your social skills and start taking the level in Sexy Badass, then check out my book, New Game Plus, The Geek's Guide to Love, Sex, and Dating. This is the A to Z instruction manual for dating that we all wish that we had gotten when we started getting interested in dating. Links to buy it are in the show notes, so go check it out. And if you do check it out, do me a huge favor. Please leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads. It's a huge help. Now, if you're digging the series, you already know this whole routine. Thumbs up, ring the bell, like, share, subscribe. Yeah, you know it all. But if you are really enjoying these videos, and I mean really enjoying them, if you feel like you're getting a lot out of the series, you're finding that it's really helping, and you want to support the channel, and in the process, help fund some awesome new projects, then consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/DrNerdLove. Even $1 is a huge help, but at $3 a month or more, you get access to some excellent patron-only content. Meanwhile, you can follow me on Twitter at DrNerdLove. Keep up with the latest by joining the Facebook page at facebook.com/DrNerdLove. And as always, hit that logo to subscribe, check out my other videos, and I will see you here next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Later.